Because when you see God for who He is, that has a way of burning through all the falsehoods. You see, one of the problems, folks, we buy into a small God. That is a lie we buy into when we sin. I tell you what, if the glory of the living Christ hovered at the end of your kitchen the way He did in the temple that day, when you go home tonight, you might not say the things you would otherwise say. You might not do the things you would otherwise do. And I'll tell you what, when Isaiah saw himself, or when he saw God, he saw himself as well. And you see, well, that's one of the problems in our sin as well. We think way too highly of ourselves. Way too highly. We think our way. We think what we want trumps all. That's true. Every single time you sin, you totally blow off and cast off the Lordship of Jesus Christ. You despise it. You count it as a little thing, and you certainly are exalting yourself. You know pride is behind every sin. You are exalting yourself. You know the lie you believe every time you sin? You believe you're pretty great. You believe your ways, your agenda, your needs trump Christ's commands. Now listen, there may be a lot of other lies that you believe, but you know what? This does help. If you will really, listen, some people come along, Christians will come along, and they'll say, I've tried to fight that sin, and I know they have. The guy's not lying to me. The guy's not trying to deceive me. I know that sin grieves that brother. I know it grieves him. I can see the grief on his face. I know he's prayed over that sin. I know he's struggled over that sin. I know he's repented of that sin and he's been sincere. But then he's why do I keep going back to it? And you know what? It's because even though he may not like that sin, and even though he may be trying to fight it, he has never yet gotten to the root of the matter. He has never really gone after the lie that he believes every time he commits that sin. It will really help you. It'll help me. It'll help us if we come to grips with identify the sin and then figure out what am I believing every time I give in to that? Because there is a thought process. We don't sin in a vacuum. There is thinking. We weigh things out. We do things. There's a perception. We size things up. We look at things from a standpoint of what is desirable. Remember, desires are in this thing, folks. We have to figure out, how is it that those desires, how is it that sin is deceiving me? What lie am I buying into? And I'll tell you this, once you identify the lie, how do you battle sin? How do you battle corrupt desires? I'll tell you, if they're both deceitful, your weapon to kill these things is truth. If lies and deception are at the root, truth. You've got to come to the place where you have a handle, you have a grip on what is true. Now you think with me. Nadab and Abihu laying there dead. They've been incinerated. Aaron was not all of a sudden prone to get angry with God. The scripture said he held his peace. You better believe he held his peace. It didn't all of a sudden occur to him to get lazy with worship. It didn't all of a sudden occur to him to get sloppy as a Christian. It didn't all of a sudden occur to him Why? Because the presence of God was so real in the midst of that. And I'll tell you, why do I keep bringing that back in? Because that has a whole lot to do with truth, folks. When you begin to see God more clearly, you begin to see the way things are more truly. You see, one of the problems we have, folks, one of the reasons that sin is so rampant oftentimes in our lives or in our churches is because the presence of God is so little felt and experienced. I tell you what, when the glory of the Lord descends on a church and the fear of God descends on people and there is a presence there and people begin to draw close and there's at least some manifestation similar to that which was experienced by Isaiah or experienced by Job or experienced by Aaron, listen, sin begins to go out of the church. When people really begin to see God for who He is, and they begin to take that vision of God through their life, then putting to death the deeds of the body becomes something that is going to be more of a reality. Do you guys see this connection with truth in all this? I mean, I hope you guys see this. I hope you guys see. First, I'm going to end with this, but just to kind of summarize this. There's a connection. You put to death the deeds of the body, that's evidence you're going to live. This is life and death, folks. Putting to death the deeds of the body, you've got sin, it's deceitful. Hebrews 3:13 says so. Ephesians 2:22 or 4:22 says that these desires, they're deceitful. You've got these things. Sin trying to make you obey these corrupt desires. This thing is deceitful, this thing is deceitful. You want to do battle with this thing, folks? Truth is your weapon. You got to nail truth. You begin to pinpoint the lies you believe when you sin. And you begin to attack that with truth. You begin to memorize those scripture texts that lie in direct contradiction to that lie that you believe. That truth that is in direct opposition to that lie that you fall for. You begin to permeate yourself with the reality of the presence of God and begin to see Him how He is. You begin to come to approaching day by day your Christian life from this perspective. I can have victory. No, not only I can have it, I must have it. I will have it. And if I don't have it, I'm going to die. Not that I gain life by this battle, but I prove that I have life by this battle. I get this life to battle by becoming a child of God, by being born again. That's where this power is unleashed by the Spirit. And listen, the Spirit doesn't do it. You must do it by the power of the Spirit. He does it through you. Not aside from you, not without you. He does it as you do it. He calls us to an impossible life, but we're given the third person of the very Trinity to cause us to carry this thing out. And listen, this is no small matter. This is a life and death deal. This is not only a life and death deal. This is a really major church deal. Holiness